This is insane, and people are not paying enough attention. The Trump administration just froze federal child care funding for every single state in the country. Not just Minnesota, not just states under investigation, all 50 states, because of alleged fraud sparked by a viral right-wing influencer video. The Department of Health and Human Services says no state gets child care money unless they can now prove the funds are being used legitimately. So instead of investigating specific centers, they shut off the money for everyone. States now have to dump massive amounts of paperwork on HHS just to keep childcare programs alive. Attendance logs, licensing, inspections, complaints, investigations, and if HHS suspects fraud, they can hold the money indefinitely. This all started after a conservative influencer filmed a few Minnesota daycares, claimed they weren't operating, and accused Governor Tim Walz of massive fraud. No court ruling, no confirmed findings, no evidence reviewed by auditors. JD Vance praised the video. Elon Musk boosted it, and HHS cited it directly when freezing funding. Millions of working parents are now caught in limbo because of a YouTube video. Governor Walz called it a political move to defund programs that help families using fraud as an excuse. This doesn't punish fraudsters. It punishes parents trying to work. It punishes child care workers. It punishes kids. Child care subsidies keep people employed, businesses running, and families afloat. And the administration just turned the money off nationwide to score political.
I hope people understand just how serious and how planned this all was to force more women out of the workforce than any other point in history since the end of World War II. Trump has cut federal funding to daycare centers in every state. And all they needed was a virgin chud to show up at daycare centers either during off hours or with two men and a camera demanding access to small children, pretending not to know that the reason they're locked down is because of men like them. This was planned in Project 2025. And for the women who think this isn't going to affect them because they don't get federal funding for their daycare, they're going to be in shock. When you cut funding to the bare bones daycare centers, well, then they close. And then the middle tier, they start raising their prices because their wait list goes up. And then the hoity-toity fancy daycare centers, well, their prices go up too. And when women can't afford these daycare centers, they start to close. And then women can go back to these violent marriages that JD Vance is such a fan of. And then they convince girls in high school that there's really no point in going off and getting a career and an education because you won't be able to use it anyway if you decide to have a child. This is some handmade stuff, and it was planned, and it is an attack on women.
Childcare providers, how are you all feeling about the Trump administration halting all federal funding in all states? I am extremely worried. I am the sole provider. All but one of my families is subsidized. I only have one cash paying family and I could not stay open with that. So let me know what you're planning on doing. Will you have to close your doors? I could not even stay open 1 month and not get paid. So for me, I'm already on survival mode. I've got to figure out what my next step is. I did just start a part-time job this past Monday in the evenings, so at least I have a little bit of money coming in. That would put food on our table, and luckily it's just my daughter and I and our dog. But it wouldn't pay my housing. It wouldn't pay my mortgage. It wouldn't pay my utilities, barely. Let me know what you're planning on doing. What are you thinking about this? What will you do? Will you stay open? It's a real shitty way to start the new year. So I'm sure that the Office of Education is going to be sending out an email as soon as they get back in the office to clarify any concerns that people have. But for now, let me know what you're thinking and what you're going to do if it so happens to be that we're not going to get paid this month for the care that we provided.
The Trump administration has officially cut $10 billion in child care funding for democratically led states. Now, any of you who have kids or have had kids or know anyone who has kids knows that child care is already a huge issue in this country. There are so many families who can't afford childcare that it's cheaper to stay home than to put the kids in daycare already. And yet this is going to make it even harder for those who are struggling amongst us the most to be able to keep a job. Now, I want you to recall that Project 2025 is the blueprint for this administration. It has been, and we know that's their point. And if you read that, you will see that this is a prong of Project 2025 because they want women at home. They want women out of the workplace, out of positions of power, and at home. And by cutting childcare funding, this is another step in implementing that goal of taking any economic power away from women and placing them back at home. Because we know if someone has to stop working in the home because there's no affordable childcare, in the vast majority of cases, that's going to be the woman. Because already women are not paid equally for the task that men are doing. This is one more step towards Project 2025, and The Handmaid's Tale is one step closer to being real life in the USA. Go love your neighbor.
Hello YouTube family, I hope that you are doing fine from any part of the world that you are watching today's video from. So today we are talking about a developing issue that has serious implications for families across the United States. Reports indicate that following a major child care fraud case in Minnesota, federal authorities moved to cut child care funding nationwide, and this affected 50 states. What makes this especially concerning is that child care assistance is not a luxury. For millions of Black American families, is the only reason parents can go to work, keep their jobs, or pursue education. When funding is cut at the federal level, the consequences don't stop in one state. They ripple across the entire country. For Black American families, the issue hits close home. Historically, Black households are more likely to rely on child care subsidies due to the wage gaps, single-parent household, and limited access to affordable private child care. So when funding is reduced, the burden falls hardest on families who already carry the most weight. In this discussion today, we are not just about the fraud. We are asking why working families are paying the price for failures in oversight and whether collective punishment is the right response. Stay with me as we break the issue down clearly and honestly. This is Polito Realities, a channel where we deep and bring forward what so many people fear to talk about. If you love listening to honest conversations, then this channel is for you. Take a minute to subscribe, to like, and to share today's video. Before then, watch the clips with me and see how people are reacting with what is going on.
The Trump administration recently came out saying they're going to be freezing federal child care funds for every single state in the country. Their reasoning? Well, ostensibly, it's to prevent fraud. The Trump administration is saying they're going to be freezing these child care funds until states can provide more verification and administrative data over the programs they're funding. That being said, we all know that's bullshit, right? The Trump administration's actions are coming after widely publicized allegations of fraud, particularly in Somali daycare services in Minnesota. Now, there is fraud in the Minnesota daycare system. There's likely fraud in a lot of daycare systems. It's just how the system functions. You're always going to have bad actors who are siphoning money out of well-meaning funds that are trying to go towards good things. That being said, Somalis have come under particular fire in Minnesota as right-wing influencers and politicians have been going to these daycare centers, harassing Somali community members and basically trying to paint the Somali community as a group of people trying to actively defraud the U.S. government. It shouldn't be very hard to understand why that is. The Somali community over the past couple of months especially has been really a target of right-wing vitriol in a national campaign to demonize them and other them in U.S. politics. And if you find yourself asking, why would the Trump administration and right-wingers be attacking the Somali community, I'm going to have to ask you just to catch up, man. Come on. And in this instance, it also goes further than just demonizing the Somali community of Minnesota. It's very clear that the Trump administration is using this supposed fraud in the Somali community as a sort of cudgel to justify cutting back on federal programs. I say that because the Trump administration used this news in Minnesota to freeze the daycare funding for every state in the country. That's not something you do if you're concerned about fraud and misallocation of funds. That's something to do if you fucking hate the program and by extension fucking hate kids. That being said, given Trump's prominence in the Epstein files, I really don't know how much he hates kids at all. It seems like he actually very much loves children. He just probably doesn't like these government services. All of that being said, due to the xenophobic and just outwardly racist right-wing campaign against Somalis, federal funding is being frozen in a way that is going to affect kids and their parents across the country. Just an all-around great start to the year, But yeah, as always, just something we're thinking about. Assalamu alaikum.
Administration says it is now withholding all federal child care funding to the entire state. The agency says the state receives $185 million for 19,000 children, and now that money will be gone. And the agency did not specify any alternate plans for families who will be affected. DHS and the FBI said they were surging resources to Minnesota to investigate what they called suspected fraud sites. This all comes in response to a viral video posted by a MAGA content creator. He claims that he uncovered widespread fraud by Somali-run child care centers in the state. CNN is looking into those claims and has not independently verified the accusations. But the Deputy Secretary of Health and Human Services is taking the allegations at face value. Take a listen.
Intrepid journalists have made shocking and credible allegations of extensive fraud in Minnesota's child care programs. We believe the state of Minnesota has allowed scammers and fake daycares to siphon millions of taxpayer dollars over the past decade. Starting today, we require a justification, receipt, or photo evidence before we make a payment.
However, the so-called evidence comes from a man who has posted anti-Muslim and anti-immigrant content in the past. CNN's Whitney Wild speaks to the man behind that video and takes a look at his claims.
We're from CNN. Can we talk to you? This is MAGA YouTuber Nick Shirley. Back at a daycare in Minnesota, he alleged was a fraudulent facility in a now viral video.
People are going to say this is a left or right issue, but no, fraud is fraud. And so I'm not out here trying to put a twist on things.
Shirley's viral video, released over the weekend, in which he says he's uncovering tens of millions of dollars in fraud at Minneapolis daycares run by the Somali community, was retweeted by Elon Musk and Vice President J.D. Vance. In the video, Shirley tries to open locked doors and talk to people at various daycares he claims are frauds. Did you come during their normal operating hours when you came to visit?
I came at 11 a.m., I believe, and I also came the following day, later in the day. The point of it is not whether or not I came at the right time of their operation hours. The point is that blacked out doors, they can't give you any information. You call that number, no one answers. I wasn't trying to go inside, and there should be a way for somebody to actually be able to call that number and somebody to be able to answer. These aren't real businesses.
But surely you don't think a daycare should just be unlocked. You shouldn't be able to just walk into a daycare.
Should be a reception.
No, every daycare is locked.
It has their doors are locked.
And so, okay, you bring up a fair point. Then why can't they actually give me information how to enroll a child?
Federal law enforcement has been investigating fraud in Minnesota for several years. Both Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel said on social media they've indicted dozens of defendants. DHS has posted multiple videos of agents they say are conducting a massive fraud investigation. Do you think that federal law enforcement hasn't done enough? I mean, they would say, look, these fraud cases have been going on, but they've already done like 80 indictments. The cases have been going on, for years.
And why did I show up one day in Minnesota and go to all these daycares, no children, they're receiving millions of dollars. We uncovered nearly $110 million in fraud in one day.
How do you know that all the allegations that you're making are true?
How do I know that they're true? Well, we showed you guys what was happening, and then you guys can go ahead and make your own analysis.
We're coming so we can make our own analysis. Are you 100% sure you're true?
Yeah, I am 100% sure I'm true.
CNN is looking into Shirley's claims.
Hi, my name's Whitney Wild. I'm a correspondent for CNN.
We reached out to several of the daycares featured in the now viral video. Only one daycare facility answered and said they are a legitimate business.
Have you seen the videos, purporting that some of these daycares don't have kids inside?
Minnesota Republicans say despite the new focus from the Trump administration, they have been sounding the alarm on fraud for years.
We have talked about fraud. We have gotten stories. We've tried to push this forward every way that we can.
At the daycare where Shirley showed back up, a stream of children walk inside. You're saying that this is a fraudulent daycare. There's kids being dropped off right now.
Yes, the Commissioner of Children literally said a week ago this place was closed.
Did you know
They're
that?
showing face right now.
A viral video, disputed claims, and their full fallout remains to be seen.
Dozens of fraud cases that
you should be able to go out and give your opinion, and a person should say, screw you, I don't like what you have to say, and y'all walk away from each other, right? And like I was telling you the other day about making sure you're safe, This world is crazy. Like, you shouldn't have to worry. You should be able to go out and give your opinion, and the person should say, screw you, I don't like what you have to say, and y'all walk away from each other, right? Or the person say, I love what you got to say, I want to entertain the conversation. But nowadays, they want to kill you. They don't want to argue with you. They want to bludgeon you. They want to beat you.
And they think it's justifiable. Yeah, so like security is something that you don't really think about until you need it.
Yeah.
And like you don't want to have to think about it after the fact that you needed it. And so like when you reached out and you're like, yo, I got this company, I got these people that help me do my security, like you need to get with them, especially for this video, because the Somalis.
Yeah, obviously for the audience that hear me talk about Blackline all the time, and it's like, you are the reason I created Blackline, me and people like you, right? And the reason I create the Guardian Fund, which is the nonprofit side of it, where like your audience can support you. And so your audience can donate specifically to help you with security and make sure you're safe, because this stuff can get crazy expensive.
Hello again and welcome back. And whenever the problems do occur in the United States of America, the most affected people are Black Americans. So today's story starts in Minnesota, where a large-scale child care fraud case exposed serious weakness in how funds were monitored and distributed. Millions of dollars meant to support working families were allegedly misused, raising alarms at the federal level. Fraud should always be investigated, and accountability is important, but the response is what has raised national concern. Instead of isolating the problem and fixing oversight systems, federal action reportedly led to child care funding being cut across 50 states. That decision immediately shifts the impact from a single state misconduct to millions of families nationwide who had nothing to do with the fraud itself. To understand deep how this matters, we need to look at how child care assistance functions in the United States. For many families, especially the low and the middle income households, child care subsidies are the bridge between employment and unemployment. Without affordable child care, parents, mostly the mothers, are forced to leave the workforce or reduce the working hours. Black American families are affected by these kinds of cuts. Due to long-standing economic inequalities, Black households are more likely to depend on public child care assistance. When funding is just cut randomly, it compounds existing challenges such as wage gaps, unstable employment, and lack of generational wealth. Another critical issue is about accountability. Fraud in Minnesota points to failures in oversight, regulation, and enforcement. The question many families are asking is simple. Why aren't the system being fixed instead of the funding being cut? When funding disappears, the people who suffer most are not the fraudsters. They are the working parents and children. There is also a broader political question here. When federal decisions are made in response to scandals, are they being guided by fairness or by punishment? Cutting child care funds nationwide sends a message that collective consequences are acceptable, even when they hurt the most vulnerable. This situation highlights a pattern that Black American communities have been before, policies that respond to abuse by reducing access rather than improving the systems. Instead of strengthening oversight, the solution often becomes restriction, which ultimately widens the inequality being seen in the United States of America. At this juncture, this issue isn't just about Minnesota or the fraud that took place there. It's about American treats working families, how federal power is exercised, and who absorbs the shock when policy decisions are made quickly and broadly. These are conversations that deserve attention, especially from communities most affected by the child care instability. As this situation continues to develop, it's important to look beyond political labels and focus on real-world impact. Families are trying to survive. Families are trying to work and raise children, and decisions made in Washington reach straight into their homes. You have been watching Polito Realities, a channel where we handle real discussions and bring forward what so many people fear to talk about. Leave your thoughts in the comment section. Until next time, be grounded, be informed, and be blessed.